Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are so delighted that you are joining us today. Thank you so very, very much for all of your support. Thank you so much, by the way, for subscribing to the show. And you haven't subscribed? Well, please do. You can do it on iTunes. You can do it on our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Or you can go over to iHeartRadio. And why? Because you don't want to miss any guests. Like today's guest. She's amazing. Her name is Michelle Nelson-Schmidt, and she's the author of Cordelia and the Whale. This episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast is brought to you by Jedley's award-winning children's book, The Great Maratini.
Long time ago, there was a boy named Sam who liked to do his magic tricks, and he was quite the ham. He was called the Great Maratini, the best magician of his age, but his greatest feat took place far away from any stage. Every trick Sam tried to do would somehow come out wrong, but Sam just kept on going, and that's what made him strong. He was called the Great Maratini, the best magician of his age, but his greatest feat took place far away from any stage. One day as he traveled, he helped a stranger in need, and this was not a trick, oh no, but a magical good deed. He was called the Great Maratini, the best magician of his age, but his greatest feat took place far away from any stage. He was called the Great Maratini, the best magician of his age, but his greatest feat took place far away from any stage.
To get your autographed copy of the giant bilingual edition of The Great Maratini, please visit greatmaratini.com. Joining us on the line right now from Pensacola in Florida. Not only is she an author, she is also a school show performer. So we have this kind of bond together, and I'm really excited. I don't get a chance to speak to many other people who do school assembly. So please welcome to the show the author of Cordelia and the Whale, Michelle Nelson-Schmidt. Michelle, how are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm excited to have you on. As I said, I don't have a chance to talk to a lot of other school show performers because we're always working at the same time.
Exactly.
So it's great to have you on. Michelle also has a wonderful YouTube channel. We'll be talking about that in a minute. But first, can you tell us a little bit about Cordelia and the Whale?
Well, Cordelia and the Whale started, I would say, actually probably 3.5 years ago with the picture book Cordelia. A little girl whispered in my ear, and she said, "My name is Cordelia, and I can fly." And I was intrigued by that, and I was like, oh my gosh, tell me more about yourself. That's how my characters show up. And she actually showed me what she looked like, and I'm an illustrator too, so I drew her, and then I wrote about 10 pages in my journal. She told me the story about how she can fly, and that became my picture book. And about a year after the book came out, in 2016, I heard another voice, and it was a voice and said, well, you know how Cordelia can fly? And I said, well, yeah, I know. I wrote the book. And she says, well, I'm the one that taught her how to fly. I said, well, who are you? She says, well, I'm the blue whale that's in the book. I go, you are? And she says, yeah, my name's Beatrice, and I'm 904 years old. I was like, what? And she told me a story so long and ended up becoming my first novel. It's a middle grade chapter book. And that is how Cordelia and the Whale came to be. And that is really how most of my books come to me, is the characters show up and start talking.
And that's really fascinating. And I imagine some of the authors that are listening can absolutely relate to that. But have you ever told that to someone who doesn't write, who doesn't create, and gotten some strange looks, like there might be something wrong with you?
Absolutely. First of all, my husband's like, there's medication for that, Michelle. But I say it at school assemblies on purpose, and I tell them that I hear these voices, and I say, I know they're imaginary, but my imagination's so vivid, I can literally hear the different characters and how they sound. And I will say, and I bet there are some kids in this room, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, and y'all see the kids nod, and I'll say, and there's some of you in this room, you're going, Miss Michelle, you sound crazy. And then the other kids nod, and I acknowledge that, and I say, all our brains don't all work the same. And so right there, I say, just because you don't hear voices or you don't create the same way as I do, it doesn't make any of it right or wrong. This just happens to be my process, and some of you get it, and some of you definitely don't.
Yeah. People often ask me where I get my inspirations from for the magic tricks and stories that I create and tell on stage. And I don't necessarily hear characters come, but I absolutely hear of voice. It's not like words, but it's a spirit, it's a feeling that kind of comes to me. And it is really difficult to explain to people sometimes.
Yeah, if that's not how certain people work, it's it just kind of makes you sound a little bit crazy. And I have to assure people, I do get that it's not real voices, but it's a difficult thing to explain that creative process to some people.
Yeah. And it really is a gift, and it's something that I cherish. And two, that's, I think people, for me, it's not work. I mean, it's not something that comes often, but when it does come, it's amazing. And there's a lot of times where a lot of my inspirations will happen on stage when I'm in front of 400 or 500 kids. And that is both wonderful and terrifying. Because it's, and you can probably relate to this, it's wonderful because all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, this is something new and it's coming out of me right now, and I don't know what's going to come next. And the terrifying part is, what is going to come next? And then is there going to be an end to this?
Right. And you just have to trust it. And something that you probably get this question too, and probably you get this more, I get this more from adults than kids, is you should write a book about blah, blah, blah. And I said, if it was that simple, I would have it, I'd be a millionaire because I'd have 300 books if I could just choose what to write about and make the book. I said, I have to wait until the inspiration shows up, until that character talks to me, until I said, and I don't get to choose what I write about. These things tell me, the voices, the characters. So, and that's so difficult too, and some people can just say, oh, write a book about this, and they can, but it just doesn't work. And they also show up not usually at ideal times. Like, I want to be resting. I just finished 3 books, and already this other character is like, it's my turn. And I'm like, no, I just need a break. But there is no breaks. Like, if you have to write it and you have to create it, you do not get to choose the timing.
Yeah. And I think there's some people out there who say, oh no, you should discipline yourself, and perhaps they're right. But I, like you, am very much a creature and moved by when the spirits and the muse come and move me.
Yeah. Exactly. I wish I could be one of those. I read these, what's your daily routine? Oh, I wake up at 5:30 and I take a walk and then I write for 3 hours. And I'm like, oh, I wish. Every day is different for me. Every single day is different for me.
Well, and two, it must be the fact that you're traveling around to all these different schools and performing makes you don't have the luxury of being able to have a regular 5:30 wake up and walk and here's my writing session, because sometimes you're in a plane or you're in a car, and sometimes the school show starts at 7:30 in the morning, and sometimes it starts at noon, and who knows what's going to happen.
Exactly. And I do try my best to I pay attention during all the other times of the year when the inspiration hits for the ideas, and then try to mold the production time into summer and maybe Christmas break, so that, because I am traveling during the school year, and so that's when my production time happens. So that's when I, try to put those are the pieces where I know I can finish it and work. Like that's Cordelia and the Whale, all the editing and the illustrations was this summer, and I just had to fit the writing in where I could fit it in for the rest of the year. So yeah, schedules don't work that well for me.
Yeah, no, it's something that I've been trying to do for the past 30 years is just to sit down at the, in the spring and write out a touring schedule for the following year. I'm going to go to this place in this month and that place in next month and the other place. And it all starts off well and good. And then the phone starts to ring and it's like, okay, just tear this up and we're just going to kind of go.
Yep.
Next year we'll figure it out.
This is so refreshing. I haven't been able to relate to somebody with my particular career in a long time. So this is very nice.
But it is, and I think you'd agree with me. It's been a crazy career, and it's a roller coaster, and it's up and down, and there's a lot of flights and a lot of hotel rooms. But most of all, there's these hundreds and thousands and millions of smiles that you encounter in your job.
Oh yeah, the hugs, the smiles, I have kids that come up to me and just say, thank you for coming. You inspired me today. And even though most, you hug 3,000 kids in a week, you catch a cold here and there, and every time, and it's totally worth it. I mean, those kids, they're just, I couldn't not do it. Yeah. I just adore it.
You mentioned catching a cold. I remember being in a school in New Jersey, and one of the things I love to do is when I can just stand outside the auditorium or cafetorium, cafegimatorium, and shake hands with the kids as they come in. And there was this one particular school, I literally shaken 400 hands, and then a teacher was coming in, I put my hand out, and she said, there's a stomach bug that's gone through every single kid in this school. I am not touching you.
Oh, no.
I said, well, I have super immunity.
Yeah, I'm down to like one cold a year usually. In the beginning, oh my goodness, a couple kids almost killed me, but I got through it. But yeah, it takes a lot to get me sick now.
Now, one of the things that and we're going to get back to your books and definitely talk about your YouTube channel. And I also want to talk about why you made the choice to self-publish this last book. But, I imagine if you're doing school shows, you have some kids kind of get on stage and interact with you. Have you ever?
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask, if you do, have you ever do you ever have the opportunities where teachers would come up to you afterwards and say, how did you know to pick that kid? That kid needed to be up on stage today. It was so important. How did you know?
I don't have kids interact, but I do question time at the end. And I have had that happen with, how did you know to call on that person? Or I called on this, like I just had it happen where it was a boy and I just knew to call on him. And he raised his hand, and when he talked, he was almost nonverbal, and he talked in a really gravelly voice. And it ended up that I found out afterwards, the gym teacher came up to me and said, I just need you to know what a big deal it was that kid raised his hand, because he is autistic and he's almost nonverbal. And he says that was huge that he raised his hand to talk in front of all these kids. And I don't know how you knew. And so, yes, that happens. And again, all I know is I trust what I feel, and you are drawn to certain kids, and it happens again and again. And I think that when you're and I describe when I am with these kids, there is an energy flow that goes back and forth between us. And, I give as much energy to my 10th school, which is, my maybe 20th presentation of the week. And that's because I say I don't get tired until it's over because that energy is so there and it just flows back and forth between me and the children. And I said, it's impossible to get tired because there's just so much energy going on. And so, yeah, it's that same spirit, muse, whatever, that tells me to call on those kids. And that happens again and again, even with sometimes I'll go off script and say something that I don't know why I'm saying it, but I hear in my head, like, say this, tell this part of this story you never tell, Michelle. And I almost, in 99% of the cases, I get confirmation right afterwards that someone, either a teacher or student, needed to hear that specific thing that I almost never say. And that's when I know I'm just in that flow and I'm in that zone and it just happens.
Yeah. It's so cool. It's so cool to be speaking to somebody who's experienced the same thing. Cause I don't get it. You know, that I wrote, my children's book, Real Magic, tells us a very similar story about having an autistic student come up on stage with me. And, you know, at the end of the show, a teacher came up and said, this kid's been out of school for 2 years. She hasn't said a word to anybody. And she was on stage speaking in 2 different languages in front of 1,800 kids. How did you do that? And I'm like, I didn't do anything.
That's so great. That's giving me goosebumps hearing that because there are these moments that you have and it's hard to explain to anybody that's not had them. And, you know, but everybody in that room got to experience that, you know, and see that. And that's what's so amazing. But afterwards you leave and you just want to be like, oh my gosh, I want to tell everybody about this magic moment that happens.
Now, one of the things you talked about being, you know, not being tired on stage and doing 10 or 20 performances in a week. I also understand, I absolutely understand that. And I also understand that at the end of that last performance for that week, when you finally get back to your bed at home or to the hotel and you crash, you must crash and just be completely exhausted.
Yeah, I get on that plane because usually I'll pack up and a lot of times, like, I'll do my last presentation. We pack up at the school. Everything's in the car. I go straight to the airport. Oh, and I sit down, you know, in the airport lounge or on that airport seat and there have been times I lean my head. I have a What If Monster plush that goes with one of my books and I use them as a pillow and my head hits the side window seat and I have slept all the way home through a flight because I have the gift of sleeping on planes, which is nice. And so, sometimes the plane bumps and I realize I'm home and I just was out.
Well, before we run out of time here, and I want to know, why did you choose to self-publish Cordelia and the Whale? You have published a number of books through Usborne Publishing, but you made a different choice with this. Why was that?
Well, the first obvious reason is it was rejected.
Oh.
So I submitted it and they were, I really don't know why they rejected it. I wasn't given too much reason. And after I got over my initial boo-hooing about that, because I kind of took for granted they were going to say yes. And shockingly, I'm like, what? So, and it's a different genre. So I was like, well, maybe that's it. And, again, I hear Beatrice's voice in my head and she said, that's too bad. You're still going to have to make it anyway. And so I thought about going the traditional route and I don't currently have an agent. I was going to have to get an agent and then go that route. And I knew it would be at least 3 years. And that was 3 years if everything went perfectly and fast. Maybe in 3 years this book would come out with another publisher. And I thought, this story needs to be told now. And I knew self-publishing would be the best route for this because I also didn't want to split up a companion book with a different publisher. So I thought if I self-publish, then I don't have to run into dealing with two different publishers promoting a book that has a character with another publisher. And I just thought that would be easy. And it was a challenge and something I wanted to try. And it's one of those, thank goodness I didn't know before I started what I was getting myself into. And I hired a fantastic editor. But it was, more expensive than I thought it would going to be because I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted this book to stand out and be able to stand aside any traditional published book. So I did all the work. I had to learn about self-publishing. I had to learn about everything. And I did it. And I sold, pre-sold about 1,000 of them.
Wow.
And then I had to mail out 1,000 books all on my own. And this was literally, I finished mailing all those books out on my own about a week before my first week of school visits. So I went right into school visits having not come up for air, and so this is like right now, I just finished 2 weeks in Montana. But that's why it was a necessity to get it published in the timeline I wanted. And that's exactly why I did it. And it's been a great experience, and now I'm in the marketing and promotion of it, which, when you wear all the hats, you're like, I want to put on my nap time hat, but there's no time for that.
Yes. As we always say here that, writing a great book is only kind of 10% of the process. It's, you get this whole other 90% that you don't even think about as you're in that creative flow.
Yeah, if people can't buy it if they don't know about it,
right.
And we're all our best salesmen. Well, I guess it's nice if somebody else will do it, but I have found the best marketing is my own. I have paid for PR people in the past, and every time I'm like, I could do this myself, or I could do this better. And I'm not bagging on any PR people, but if no one's going to guarantee me results, then I might as well be doing it myself,
Well, we definitely want to make sure we spend some time talking about your fabulous YouTube channel because it's really cool. And I like to say that my live show is totally interactive, but your YouTube channel is totally interactive because you're talking with the kids that have seen you on stage and seen you in the schools and read your books and are seeing you on YouTube.
Yeah, I started doing Storytime Live. It's every Wednesday at 7:30. And I kind of go back and forth between doing it on Facebook and YouTube to see which one's the best. Right now I'm doing it on Facebook, but I put the videos onto YouTube for viewing later. But it is completely interactive. I give away 5 gifts every single week, which is a whole nother layer of getting the post office. But I started that because almost 5 years ago, my husband was deployed and I still had kids at home. They're now out of the house living on their own. But at the time I couldn't travel. So it was the year I couldn't travel. I wanted to stay in touch with the kids. And honestly, at first it was marketing, and I quickly fell in love with my Storytime Live family and realized how much I relied every week to hang out with these kids and their parents and how much it was giving me to do this. And I rarely miss it. I mean, I will very rarely cancel or miss. I maybe 4 times a year I miss a Wednesday because I do it from my hotel. I do it when I'm traveling, and it has just become something I adore. And, I've had kids that have grown out of it in the last almost 5 years, and then I have newcomers come in. So my audience, stays fairly consistent for many years. The same people keep coming.
That's wonderful. Yes, I noticed when I checked your YouTube channel and watched a couple of the videos, and they're really great. I was looking in the background and I said, I recognize that pillow and that lamp. I've been in that before.
Yep. Yeah. We start to when hotels feel like home, you travel a lot.
Yeah. I had my daughter when she was younger, she would tour with me many times, and we'd go out for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And one year we had an Italian an international student living with us, and my daughter and I were going out, and we said, hey, you can come out with us. You're going to see a lot of the country. It's not going to be sightseeing. We're going to be working, but you're welcome to come with us. And so she did, and she had a great time, and we were able to sneak out and have some fun. But and about 2.5 weeks in, she starts shaking her head, and she's like, I don't understand this. We're in a different city every day, but every night we're in the same hotel. How does that work?
That's funny.
Well, there's a lot going on, and you have lots and lots of books, so much that parents are going to want to check out. Where can people go online to learn more about Michelle Nelson-Schmidt?
My website, which is MNS for Michelle Nelson-Schmidt, mnscreative.com, is where you can find out about all the things that I do, my books, links to, buy Cordelia and the Whale from me, a signed copy, or you can always get it on Amazon with free shipping. Either way is fine with me. If you're buying my book, get it wherever you want to. It's on Barnes & Noble as well, but all those links are on MNS Creative.
Yeah, it really is. It's a fun website. There's links to the video, all the books, and you're just going to love it. mnscreative.com. I've had a blast speaking to you today. It's great to spend time with someone who's kind of walked some of the same stages I have over the years.
Yeah, this was really great. And it's just been wonderful. And thank you for what you do because, yeah, reading to your children, reading with your children. Cordelia and the Whale is a great read aloud to your children. I say it's in the vein of Charlotte's Web kind of feel. Mm-hmm. And I think it's the most important thing we could do with our children is to read with them and to read to them.
Absolutely. Yes. And not, like we say all the time, not just when they're babies, but all the way through those middle grades, high school. There are times me and my daughter still kind of read. We don't sit down and read together, but we'll read the same thing and then talk about it and have wonderful conversations.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Well, our guest today is the author of Cordelia and the Whale. Check it out. Find it on Amazon and on mnscreative.com. Our guest has been Michelle Nelson-Schmidt. Michelle, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, and happy holidays.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Megan Marie Geary, and she is going to be here to tell us about a surprisingly exciting adventure. Yes, a great conversation talking to our kids about getting outside of their comfort zones and also helping us as parents be comfortable with our kids getting outside their comfort zones. That's on the next edition of the podcast. Hey, we would love for you to pick up a free copy of my brand new book called Love That I Matter to You. It was written intentionally for kids to read to their parents, and you are going to love hearing your child read this book to you over and over and over again. It is free. You can get a free digital download by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, signing up for our newsletter. And we never, ever sell any of our subscribers' email addresses. We just keep it for ourselves, and we only use it to let you know about the great shows that are going to be coming to you. And like I said, if you sign up for that free newsletter, you can download a free digital copy of Love That I Matter to You. Hey, want to thank Miss Michelle Nelson-Schmidt for being here today. We love speaking to her about Cordelia and the Whale, and also speaking to her about the joys and tribulations of being a school show performer. Oh, and we also want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to read with your kids. I'll be looking for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.